Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, and Ustazah and Professor Heba Raof, Dr. Farouk, Dr. Dzulkefky, your audience. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to everybody. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, alhamdulillah, wa bihi nasta'in. You know, I don't know, I've prepared something else, but after listening to Dr. Heba Raof, it's really, pushed me back to the memory lane where, you know, we enjoy lovely discussions about politics beyond the discourse of power, especially when we deal with Codians, Abdul Wahab Nasiri students, like her and the others. We try to look what is beyond power, because sometimes power corrupts, and more power corrupts.
Absolute power.
Absolute power corrupts more. Corrupt absolutely. Yeah, it's true. And another thing, when Dr. Heba pointed out few, I would say, real and essential questions to be answered rather than theoretical and, you know, those kind of rhetoric. It's very important because nowadays we live in a society where we ought or we push to answer theoretical and unrealistic questions that will lead to unrealistic answers. It's not practical at all. But we were pushed to deal with it. So it sways us away from the real question, the reality even, and the danger that waiting before us in the future. So, and the failure of religious scholars, not only in this country but elsewhere, they fail to address that question, and what more, to give answers to those questions. So when you were mentioning about the failure of scholars in dealing with the confiscation of land, but rather busy with the body part of women, I mean, that is real. It's not only the case in Egypt, it's everywhere, even in Malaysia. And this is why the other day when I was asked by, I think one of the newspapers, Sinar Harian, said why younger generation, okay, I see a lot of controversial faces here convened today. Is this a convention or, you know, of the illegals or outcast? Okay. Why younger people are attracted more towards unconventional, or quote unquote, call it liberal ideologies or ideas? It's simply because religious scholars fail to answer essential and realistic questions. Not only they fail to address those questions, and not only they fail to answer those questions, they fail to address those questions. They fail to address those concerns. So they fail the youth. The youth are searching for it from somewhere else. So I think it's rather important sometimes to look at things beyond the conventional discourse. So when you were mentioning about beauty, about, you know, we rarely talk about politics and love, politics and static, and friendship, yeah. Precisely, yeah. It's muted. And if we read Al-Farabi and Madinah Al-Fazila, he said the main objective of politics is to attain happiness, to attain sa'adah. Unfortunately, nowadays we talk about politics, it's about who's getting more billions than the others. You know, that's the reality. And we have to deal with the level of corruption that, you know, pushing us away from all these aesthetic things, from all these real things concerning politics. And, you know, when Al-Ghazali tried to categorize politics, he put it under the discipline of what? Akhlaq. It's akhlaq. It's not under, you know, administration, whatever. Politics is under akhlaq. But nowadays, you talk about politics and politicians, they are the most non-akhlaq people. And politics, you know, I still remember when I was in the UK, I used to work part-time as a cleaner. You know, it's a normal profession for most Malaysian students there. So I was asked by the bank manager, he said, what are you studying? What are you reading? I said, I'm reading, unfortunately, I'm reading religion and politics. Oh, you're combining two disasters. Two disasters. Yeah, that, unfortunately. Okay, but those are the most important things in our life that shape our future. So, talking about is civil state Islamic, whatever. I think Dr. Farouk has explained his position just now. I only want to take two anecdotes. The first anecdote is something to do with my supervisor. He's coming from Sri Lanka, so he's doing his PhD on the issue of minority Muslim in Sri Lanka. So I corrected him. I said, you shouldn't categorize yourself as minority, because Muslims in Sri Lanka, they are indigenous. They should not be categorized as minorities. So I asked them, who are the minorities? Oh, we Muslims. And so I asked them, who are the majority? Is it the Sinhalese? I said, why? Because they are the largest population. But you guys were born there. You're not minorities in a term of political science. You're not minority at all. You are part of Pribumi, indigenous. Okay. Even Malays there, we have Malay community there. I mean, they are Muslims. Even they should not consider themselves minorities. The same thing when I was dealing with our Singaporean Muslims. I told my students in Singapore, you are not minority. You are Singaporean. You are the citizen. You know, Christians supposed to be the minorities in Singapore, but they never call themselves as minority. Christians, Singaporean Christians, Singaporean Muslim, Singaporean Buddhists, whatever. So the moment you put yourself as minority, you are downgrading your own self. And the moment you put the word minority to yourself, you are making yourself very exclusive from the other. So he said that after 2009, everything has changed, especially after the government, the Sri Lankan government has managed to defeat LTTA, the Tamil Tiger, and they began to discriminate Muslims. That's what he said, and that is based on what have been written into reality. So we were discussing about the solution. So I told him, I think the only solution is to have politics as a neutral space, to have a neutral national coalition to fight against any kind of discrimination towards any group of people, be them the Tamil, be them Muslim, be them Malayalam, be them whatever they are. I mean, if there is any oppression against them, it should be fought. It should be, you should fight it by the name of democracy, by the name of human rights, by the name of citizenship. So he said, oh, I used the word neutral, and then he came up with an article written that, oh, your idea is very similar to this article. He said that we need a secular national coalition. He said, oh, the same thing. But he said, but we Muslims, we cannot take secular. Okay, come on, he's talking about secular in a meaning. It's a non-religious bias. It's a neutral space, and we need that when we're dealing with power, because the moment you associate power with certain race or certain sectarian, certain ethnicity, there will be discrimination. Okay, so I mean, it was a very fruitful discussion, but at the end of the day, I told him that, you know, one thing, this is what the civil state means. I mean, you find a solution to solve through the rule of the game. And it comes to the second anecdote. I still remember a student of mine who was teaching in Durham. Originally, her father from Iraq, but she was born there, and she considered herself as Welsh British. So she's a communist, ideologically, but Muslim. Can we have communist Muslim? Yeah, yes, we can. She said that. I didn't say anything. Manara, please quote her, not me. Okay. So, no, they are there. They're here. So, she said that after reading all these Islamic staff on politics, she decided that anarchism is Islamic. Definitely, she said that again, not me. She said, Islam, the closest system to Islam is anarchism. We need no state. We believe in no state. So I told her, okay, present your argument. If you can substantiate your argument, I cannot say no, that's your finding. But I can criticize. I have my own personal point of view on it. But let's come again to the discussion of state. Do we really need state? Do we really need state? Or state as a necessary evil? Or state as a leviathan, as a monster, like Hobbes explained it? Or at the first place, do we really need a state to govern us? Now state has replaced God, especially post-Westphalian Treaty. The nation state, or the Hegelian notion of state is God has appeared in human life in a form of state, because state dictates everything. It's philosophical, but that is the reality. So when Dr. Heba Raof came up with the idea that actually it's not only state, now you have, whatever you said, urbanization, urban planning has become another God. Another God. It is a God. Come on, please don't misquote me again. Urban planning is another God. Okay, you record it and put it on website, put it YouTube, viral it. Dr. Maszlee has a new God. Auzubillah. Okay. No. A new religion. And the other day we were talking about commercialization, for example. A lot of other things has replaced God. So amongst others, it's state. And it's very unfortunate sometimes, even amongst political Islamists, they consider state as a goal and not as a means. To resurrect, to re-erect a caliphate state is the goal and not only as a means. And we ended up having ISIS, having Taliban, having all sort of these people. Because for them, this is the pinnacle of Islamic, of Islamic teaching. Why? Because the ideology of state. And the ideology of state actually was not really derived from Islamic tradition. You're talking about nation state or modern state or territorial state is something that been imposed upon us. So, but people will say, so what happened in Medina? Medina, they have a state. Was it a state? Was Medina a state? How did you define it? Was it a dawla? It was not a dawla. It was not a dawla. So how will you define it? It is a state and it is not a state. It is not a state in the definition of modern state that we know nowadays. It has territory, it has constitution, it has, those kind of things. It has its own limitation. It is a state based on the idea of power structure of those days. Because it keeps expanding and sometimes it's shrinking. The idea was all about, and I don't know how to call it. How do you define it, Dr. Heba? Is it it's a kind of power structure rather than a state. And that is part of human nature. Political arrangement, Dr. Heba put it. And that is part of human nature. And this is why Ibn Taymiyyah did not even mention about Khalifa in his book, did not even deal with the issue of caliphate or whatever, because he was living in a period where there was no Khalifa. And he said that it is part of human nature to have a political arrangement amongst them, to elect a leader, to govern them, to protect them. But it is not the goal. It is not things that you put it as Royatuna. This is our game. This is our main aim, main objective. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is, as part of human nature, but even nature change, according to Dr. Heba. Okay, but that is the purely human nature. We need order. That is why we need state. This is where I strongly believe we need state, but a minimal state. We do need them.
It's okay, right now.
Okay. She doesn't need a politician. She doesn't need politicians. I do need politicians to bring my concern in the parliament anyway, and to give scholarship to my children. Okay, sorry, I'm just joking. Okay, so and to fight corruptions, we need politicians to fight corruptions before they get corrupted. Yeah. Before they get corrupted. Okay. Okay, so coming back to the idea of state, we need them. What we need to minimize the size of state. If you read the history, if you remember, you read Islamic history, what was the role of the state in Islamic history? No, not the state. What was the role of kingdom, emirates, powers, whatever you call them, the Khalifa, the Sultan? They are there to guard to secure the border, to maintain law and order, rule of law, justice, and the well-being of. No, the well-being is on the hands of the citizens themselves. They are not there to determine the well-being of the people. Okay. They were there just to guard the borders, just to secure the peace, and just to maintain law and order. They did not interfere with businesses. They do not interfere with the markets. They don't interfere with people's life. And they do not interfere with religion. That is why religions flourish under the awqaf. And awqaf was administrated by the ulama. Ulama was a separate, independent identity from the state. The moment they were co-opted by the state, they started, giving all the justification to support the rulers. The education was not upon the state. It was left to the people to decide. Jamiatul Azhar, for example, Al-Azhar University, Zaituna, the oldest university. It was established by a woman, am I right? Yes. And Qarawiyyin, was it funded by Al-Khaf as well? So, state should be minimized.
Allowing my time though.
Okay. Where were we? State should be minimized and should be limited on those areas. This is where, but unfortunately, when we read the history, especially after the post-colonial period, we have the tendency to romanticize. We cherry picking all those things on history and trying to portray that, okay, because of these rulers, because of the Khalifa, we flourish, because of the Khalifa, we managed to achieve this and that. But we never talk about the community. We never talk about the achievement of the community, the achievement of certain institutions within the society. You can only find that in the accounts of the travelers, unfortunately, and not the historians. Apart from maybe Al-Balaziri and the others, they did address. But unfortunately, for the Islamists, and for modern Muslim scholars, again, when they're reading the history, they're cherry picking, trying to portray, they take bits and pieces, and trying to strengthen the argument of power, the discourse of power, and then neglecting the larger part of the history, which is the people themselves. Dr. Heba mentioned it just now, where sometimes we neglect the dynamism of Islamic society, of Muslim society, Muslim society, when they manage to administrate themselves. You can find it, maybe Ibn Battuta has written something about it, Ibn Khaldun has mentioned something about it. How even among the Bazaris, among the farmers, the Palahi, amongst the villages, they managed to administrate themselves. So we neglect the dynamism of society. So society needs to be addressed when we're dealing with the issue of civility. Okay. And another thing, I think, what I would like to say is, talking about the shape of the state, whether it is Islamic, civil or not, I think it's not important. We need to address the real issue of separation of power. Last night, there was a black dot in the history of Malaysian legal system. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, majority of the people did not aware of that. Why? Because we never been addressed of the real issues.
In my Facebook.
The separation of power. No, never mind. You can still have time to read Malaysia Kini. Oh no, don't read Malaysia Kini. They're dangerous. Read Media Oren. Or maybe his Facebook. Okay. So the issue of freedom of media, rotation of power, the issue of transparency, free and fair election, these are the real issues concerning the citizens. But the moment you are being taken away from discussing these real issues, you'll be busy talking about rhetorics, and rhetorics will bring us nowhere. And I think that's enough for me. Thank you very much.